Good afternoon. Thank you for attending my book reading. My name is Marvin R. McKim. I am the author of 3 books: The Inheritance of God's Blessing, Memories of a Man in his mid-70s, and Christian Prayers for Friends. Today, I'm going to read highlights from my book, Memories of a Man in his mid-70s. This book contains an accounting of my many losses and the many failures that were in my life. These accountings of failures and losses are in addition to the many blessings that I did not deserve, but I did receive. Today, I'm going to only do book readings from a few of the highlights of these undeserved blessings that I am still able to remember. I was born in the year 1940 during Thanksgiving week in Lamar, Colorado. This was even before World War II. My memories began in the mid-1940s. Each year, there are fewer and fewer Americans that are still able to remember what I remember. I would never have dreamed that a day would come when I would own a device that I could hold in the palm of my hand, weighing only 4 ounces. That was a telephone, a calculator, a music player, a camera, and I was able to watch a Hollywood movie in high definition. Many things have changed in my lifetime. If America and what it stood for in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s had not changed at such a slow pace, I would never have believed that the America I see today could ever have existed. During my childhood years in the 1940s and the 1950s, I always had a part-time job before school and after school. During the summer months, I held several part-time jobs, all at the same time. One of the first jobs that I remember was delivering the morning newspapers on my bicycle. I was one of the many Lamar schoolboys that climbed out of bed every morning hours before the sun was to rise. I was personally responsible to deliver the overnight news to family homes before they even drank their morning cups of coffee. I would place rubber bands around each newspaper and then place each into a canvas bag that hung over my bicycle handlebars. Even in the rain or in the snow, I would ride my bicycle up and down Lamar's side streets, tossing newspapers onto the driveways and into the yards of waiting early morning risers. My high school classmates were Lamar's sons and daughters, and we were in an era between Korea and Vietnam. A few of my friends had goals of going to college, but most of my friends were just thankful to be high school graduates. Many of my friends would follow their older brothers and enter into one of the military services. Most went into the Navy, as this would guarantee them to be a far distance from Lamar, in addition to the thrill of seeing the ocean. As I look back now, I think all of us would agree that this would be one of the best decisions each of us would ever make, as it gave our lives a love and appreciation of country. In 1960, while I was in the United States Navy, I took an emergency leave and spent time with my mother, who was hospitalized in Denver, Colorado. One evening, I decided to relax and visit a USO club in downtown Denver. They had an event in progress consisting of USO volunteers with a live band. They were entertaining the airmen from the nearby Air Force Base in Aurora. Everyone was in uniform, including myself representing the United States Navy. Feeling very out of place and surrounded by the airmen, I decided to find an out-of-the-way corner in the rear of the auditorium and in my own way attempt to relax. Hopefully this would take my mind away from my mother's critical condition. The last thing I wanted to do was to draw any attention to myself. While sitting along the wall in the rear, the bright lights came on, and these lights, they engulfed the entire auditorium, including where I sat. A woman stepped onto a band stage that was in front of the auditorium. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I would like to announce that we have a representative from the United States Navy with us tonight. Let's show him some hospitality. Naturally, I looked around hoping to see who this could be. I was thinking there must be another sailor somewhere in the room. Then I noticed all eyes were upon me. Being extremely shy, and because everything was happening so fast, I had no time to run away. I was pulled up from my chair, and every USO female volunteer in attendance had lined up standing in one long line. They then proceeded to dance and parade me along a line that they had formed. I actually think I ended up dancing with every lady in the auditorium. In 1963, I lived in Pomona, California, and I was in training to be a corrections officer for the California Youth Authority. I was responsible for 50 male inmates between the ages of 16 and 21. I was certainly challenged, but I met all my responsibilities. I tried to always be firm and always to be fair in all my decisions. One of my responsibilities was to take my 50 inmates to the swimming pool area for recreation. I will always remember the first time I accompanied my group to the pool. I changed into my swimming trunks and proceeded to the pool with my 50 inmates alongside of me. Being the corrections officer and a mentor, I did a swan dive from the end bank of the swimming pool. My skill during doing a swan dive was not a good example in demonstrating pool safety to my inmates. Unknowingly to me, I had swan dived into the shallow end, as when I surfaced, everyone's attention was directed toward me as blood encircled around me in the water. I required 5 stitches, and I wore a large patch in the middle of my forehead for the following month. Everyone in the facility heard about the corrections officer who failed to represent safety in the swimming program. I actually took it all with a sense of humor, as I was secure in my position as a corrections officer. My superiors never reprimanded me, but they would smile and shake their heads whenever they saw me approaching. In 1972, I was employed with the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. After our Friday afternoon meetings, we had a routine of going to lunch and then congregating and playing a game of 9-ball in one of the local area bars or saloons. At that time, it seemed like every bar or saloon had a pool table. My friends decided that on Friday afternoons, with me in tow, together we all would drive to other known area bars where 9-ball had become a popular Friday afternoon gambling recreation. They wanted to financially back me and my skills in playing 9-ball. I agreed, as I suppose I liked the attention, and I did enjoy playing 9-ball, as it had become a fun game. This went on for several months, and the majority of the time we would leave the bars as winners. I did come to realize that this Friday bar scene atmosphere had become too serious for me. Many players do not like to lose, and these games could become dangerous. I decided to take an early retirement from my Friday 9-ball games. My friends agreed. Not long afterwards, I was reading a newspaper advertisement that promoted pool tables. I decided there was one game left that I wanted to play. Minnesota Fats was coming to town. He was a 9-ball player that Jackie Gleason had played in the movie The Hustler. Minnesota Fats was to appear at the Lakeside Mall in an exhibition game, and he was promoting a particular brand name for a pool table. He was looking for a Denver challenger for this exhibition game. I don't remember if it was me or one of my friends who submitted my name with my qualifications to his advanced man. I don't remember very much about our 9-ball game, as I was nervous and there were many spectators, including all my friends. I did lose, but that was all right. I enjoyed the competition, and it was a 9-ball game that I would always remember. I remember the years 1974 and 1975 as being the most empty and the loneliest years in my life. In 1976, I made a decision that would change my entire life, and this change continues to this day. I had lived a life whereas in my appearance I did appear like a good person. In reality, as an adult, I had become an immature, self-centered, selfish husband and father. I did not like this person whom I had become. At 36 years of age, I wanted to change my life. I remembered back to a time when I was only 16 years of age. I remembered a particular evening being with my friend Gary. Gary shared the gospel of Jesus Christ with me, and I had accepted the invitation. I repeated the sinner's prayer as Gary had instructed. In 1976, my desire was to return back to the hope revealed to me in 1956. I now believe that ever since that evening 20 years before, God had always been in the background of my life, but I had neglected Him and I had chosen to follow my own direction in life. My hope now was that it was not too late for me to change my life. I confessed my sins, and with a repentant heart, I asked God for His help for me to change. In 1978, I was a salesman at Pioneer Porsche-Audi in Aurora, Colorado. I had just been named Salesman of the Year at Pioneer, which at that time was the largest Porsche-Audi dealership in America. I was preparing to deliver a new 911 Porsche Turbo Carrera to my customer in Raton, New Mexico. It was 4 a.m. in the morning, and I was in the Porsche below Cherry Creek Dam on Interstate 225 in Aurora, Colorado. It was still dark, and there was no traffic. I could not see any headlights or taillights ahead of me or behind me. The nighttime view on that part of the interstate was well lit, and you could see miles in all directions. I hit the gas pedal, and within seconds, the speedometer read 165 miles per hour and was still climbing. The design of a Porsche with the front sloped downward pressed the airflow so that it forced the front end to hug the road. The manageability and the control of a Porsche at that speed, because of their design, provided a safety net. In justification, I told myself, well, it appears on this test drive before my delivery that this car is performing all right to me. I can now deliver it to my customer. Raton, New Mexico is 217 miles from Denver, Colorado, south on Interstate I-25, and it took me about 4 hours before I arrived in Raton. Later that year, in only one afternoon, everything in my life changed. Everything in life seemed satisfactory, as I was happy at home and satisfied at work. One day I was in my office at Pioneer, and there came upon me from out of nowhere a desire to return and live again in Lamar, Colorado. I had no idea what I would do in Lamar, as opportunities were limited there due to its population and location. I had a Colorado insurance license, and that, along with my automobile experience, I was confident opportunities would appear. But just in case, I enrolled in Colorado Real Estate School, hid the books, and was granted a real estate license before we moved. I had a peace in my spirit, as I knew God had closed a door in my life. My faith was that He was in complete control of everything. After moving to Lamar, I found out my purpose for being there: building a roller skating rink. This was during a time in the late 1970s and early 1980s when roller skating was popular throughout America. That popularity was viewed on television and in movies, and now Southeast Colorado was again ready to have a roller rink. We were to be the only roller skating rink between Pueblo, Colorado, and Garden City, Kansas. The other rinks were both over 90 miles away, and both were in opposite directions. Roller skating had been important in my own life. 25 years prior, while I was a teenager, I had been the second best roller skater in Lamar. A friend named Buddy held the title of being the best roller skater in Lamar. I recalled my days as a teenager roller skating in Lamar and the pleasure it had brought me at that time in my life. I was close to being the perfect person for God to return roller skating back to Lamar. I was experienced in marketing, business, roller skating, and I understood the community. Most importantly, I was willing to do what God had placed into my heart. I was told by a pastor in a Lamar church that his congregation had been praying for a person such as me to bring a place like this to Lamar, to take their children off the streets and place them into something that provided a Christian atmosphere of recreation. My attitude was that children came to the roller rink to have fun and to be with their friends, and roller skating was only a part of it. Before the rink had its grand opening, I had reserved all the available days with private parties for the entire approaching year. My desire was to provide a wholesome atmosphere where parents could bring their child or their teenager and know that the surroundings were safe in every way. To me, this included the music and the words that played over the speakers on the skate floor. Every song that was played in the rink I would listen to beforehand. The music and words in the music tracks that I felt were inappropriate were banned from the rink. I wanted to have a roller skating rink with Christian standards, and this included the songs and music. The birthday book. From the first day we opened, I asked everyone, children and adults alike, to register in this birthday book. I would later announce the name of each birthday celebrity over the radio. In order to do this, I would go out to Lamar's only radio station, KLMR, and generate a weekly commercial by announcing over the radio those names who were celebrating birthdays that particular week. The entire south wall of the snack area was filled with photos of happy children attending birthday parties at the skating rink. We held a skate-a-thon to raise money for the annual Jerry Lewis Muscular Dystrophy Association, and our skaters raised more money in the rink that first year than the entire city of Lamar had ever risen in any of their previous years. I came to realize how fortunate I was, as I was actually a babysitter and entertainer for children between the ages of 4 and 16, and this joy encircled me daily. Children enjoyed roller skating. In today's modern roller skating rinks, I see many of the same marketing tools for a child's birthday party, mirroring those same ideas that I had originally put together in 1978. Maybe I was copied by others, I don't know. I do know other rinks became aware of my marketing ideas. Because of our location in southeast Colorado, with the scattered farms, ranches, and towns, I had to depend on a child, their families, and their friends to travel from as far as 50 miles away to roller skate repeatedly. Surely God had blessed the rink, as the Lamar skating rink was to become one of the best operated roller skating rinks in the nation. In my opinion, the joy and the smile of a child on a Christmas morning or on their birthday was a treasure to witness. A child's birthday is one of the most important days in the year for a child. If I had been a person to contribute to a child's happiness on their birthday, I was delighted. Hopefully, the rink had provided a righteous place of growth for a period of time in the life of a precious child. One day, during my mid-60s, while I was taking my morning walk, there was a realization of a blessing I had received, but I never fully appreciated. In 1976, I was able to quit smoking. Afterwards, I had a newfound physical energy that I never had before. I then begun a daily routine of running and jogging. For the following 20 years, I faithfully did this 5 or 6 times every week. Suddenly, I realized how this all came about. Before 1976, I had been a heavy 2.5 pack per day cigarette smoker. That particular year, I had chosen to change my life and follow the truths found only in the Holy Scriptures. From my age of 15 years, I had smoked cigarettes, and I had done so for over 20 years. Many of my friends had tried to quit smoking, and I would watch and observe. Then after struggling, it seemed they would fail. Myself, I had never before made an effort to quit, as like the others, I thought I would also fail. In 1976, I attended a 7-day quit smoking course sponsored by Porter Hospital in Denver. At the end of the 7 days, the class instructor invited everyone to join him in a Christian group prayer. I prayed with the others for God to remove my desire to smoke. In 1976, my physical health was rescued from cigarettes. At that time, I did not give God the credit he properly deserved, as he had removed that addiction from my life. This was over 38 years ago, and I have not smoked a cigarette since. During the mid-90s, and while living in Denver, Colorado, I attended a Wednesday evening Bible study. At times, someone would share a testimony of how in their own life God had reached down and changed their lives significantly, and they were aware of God's presence. I was a believer in the power behind a Christian to share a personal testimony. It would fortify others in their own Christian faith. At the same time, it would proclaim an example of the truth of the gospel to a non-Christian who might be present. One Wednesday evening, I openly shared with the others about what had happened to me while I was working at Pioneer Porsche-Audi. I told everyone about that day at Pioneer when suddenly in my spirit there was a desire to move back to Lamar, as this was the town of my birth that held so many disappointing memories in my life. I had never ever wanted to return to Lamar. Overall, returning to Lamar had been a time in my life when God blessed me greatly, and I will always remember and be grateful. When I finished sharing this testimony that Wednesday evening, those that were present told me that this was a testimony that I should share with others. In the following days, I scripted out this complete testimony, edited it, and tried to make it read as professional as I could. I was familiar with Voice magazine. It had the largest number of readers for any Christian businessman magazine in the world, with over 500,000 subscribers worldwide. Generally, in each monthly issue, they would have 2 or 3 articles from different areas of the globe where businessmen around the world shared their Christian testimonies. I mailed my completed Christian testimony to Voice magazine. Several weeks later, I was contacted, and it was from Voice magazine. I was asked if I had any colored pictures I could send them about roller skating, as they were a magazine with words accompanied with pictures. This publication of my testimony with Voice magazine was the seed that inspired me to be involved in a ministry that would encourage like-minded Christians to share with others their Christian testimonies. They published my article exactly as I had written, and they included the photos I had sent them. My written Christian testimony had been read around the world, and I did feel blessed. Since that time, I had been interviewed 3 times on Christian television in Denver. My first interview, I shared my testimony. The second interview, I talked about my first book, The Inheritance of God's Blessing. On the third and my last interview, I discussed my ministry, Christian Testimony Outreach. In the mid-90s, when the internet became accessible, I created my own website on the internet providing instructions on how to form a testimony outreach in a person's own church or community. By instructions over the internet, a church or any Christ-centered individual could sponsor an outreach for those whom are like-minded in sharing Christian testimonies anywhere in the world. The purpose for a Christian testimony outreach is to surround an individual with a grouping of like-minded Christian believers. It provides a setting to share a personal Christian testimony and the gospel of Jesus Christ, while at the same time it is to be a place for fellowship, prayer, and uplifting for Christians and their guests. Christian Testimony Outreach, after being my own ministry site to share these instructions for over 14 years, was discontinued in March 2012 as my time and resources had become limited. During this same time, I created an individual social site on Facebook using the name Christian Testimony. It would provide an interactive site that would require my personal befriending and accepting others. This new interactive social Facebook friend site changed over the years as Christians, rather than sharing their testimonies, would ask for me to pray for them or to pray for a loved one. I began to author and post prayers. Eventually, that is all I was doing, was authoring and sharing exampled Christian prayers for others. Currently, I have over 4,800 Facebook friends that I have befriended around the world, whereas I interact and openly share these prayers with. There are over 1,200 additional followers who only follow my prayer postings. Most of my Facebook friends have reposted my exampled Christian prayers on their own Facebook sites. A majority of these Facebook friends around the world are involved in Christian ministries of their own. I would venture to say hundreds of thousands of Christians around the world have read or heard my example prayers that I have shared over these past 9 years. Several years ago, I edited over 295 of these example prayers and organized them into a book. This book is published and available in paperback, hardback, or as an ebook. Additionally, I have recorded over 7.5 hours of these example prayers into an audio-video format, placing them onto YouTube.com. These 110 Christian prayers on YouTube can be found under my name of Marvin R. McKim. I behold the moon and the stars above me in the heavens, and I am bewildered how anyone of my generation or any generation could think this all came about without a creator. Many do not understand that everyone was created to live for eternity. God designed us that way. The question is, does a person desire to spend eternity in heaven or in hell? My hope is that over the years, by my actions or by my words, I have planted a seed in someone's heart that wasn't there before. As you read about my memories, and if your faith is in what Lord Jesus did on the cross at Calvary for you, perhaps someday we will meet. Ask me any questions, and I will tell you what I remember